So number 2 on Molly's 5-point health plan, remember we were talking about water, diet, sleep, exercise, supplements, is diet. This is a big conversation. I think most naturopaths spend a great deal of time talking about diet. You are what you eat, digest, absorb, and use. So all those things are really important. Diets have a bad name. Diet already brings up to people the fact that there are so many diets out there and it all feels restrictive. Remember, health is freedom from limitations. So I'm trying to find basic diets that work for everybody as a general foundational approach to health. Now, everybody's an individual. Everybody gets to my office with their own limitations or genetic alterations, et cetera, et cetera. So I will tell you that my experience after 30 years is that we eat generally way too many carbs. We eat too many carbs because we sit on our butts too much. So, and carbs are used for quick energy. So what I don't talk about carbs a lot when I'm talking about my 5-point health plan. What I'm talking about is that most people need 3 servings of protein, the size of the palm of their hand, a half an inch thick. Now, children under 4, by the way, need 6 servings of protein, the size of the palm of their hands, a half an inch thick. Okay, so I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about most fully grown adolescents to the elderly need 3 servings of protein the size of their palm of their hands. People don't even know what protein are. I ask, when I interview people, I'll say, do you even know what proteins are? So I'm going to tell you proteins are anything that comes from an animal except for Jell-O. You can tell I've taught middle school. Jell-O has no protein component to it, but it does come from an animal. Butter has very little protein and it comes from an animal, but most things that come from animals, all legumes, so that's beans, in case you don't know that, and all nuts. And I make some joke about, and when I'm talking to a kid, I said, so can you name a nut other than your mother? That's always a funny joke. So any nut, seed, or legume is a protein. We're talking any kind of animal flesh, we're talking eggs, we're talking dairy products, we're talking pinto beans and peanut butter. That's the American go-to is peanut butter. It's not my favorite. I mean, it's hard to eat that much peanut butter, by the way. And it's a lot of peanut butter. But you need 3 servings of protein the size of the palm of your hand, a half an inch thick. You'll also hear people say the size of a deck of cards. But the deck of cards is not, I mean, a deck of cards would fit on my hands, but on a large male, it's not enough. And for a little 12-year-old, it's too much. And I'm looking for 3 to 5 cups of vegetables. Americans are vegetable deficient. And in fact, and all our minerals are gotten from vegetables. And I think the basis of all American health issues, this is one of Molly's simple versions, is that Americans are stressed out, which affects their stomach acids, which makes them not appropriate, which makes them not digest the most difficult thing to digest, which is minerals or rocks, which are only found in vegetables. So Americans, the hardest thing to digest is a salad. Okay, I mean, maybe a fried fish, but salads are hard to digest. The easiest thing to digest is carbohydrates. That's why Americans, they're digested in your mouth. And Americans don't feel full unless they get their pasta. It's because they can't digest from their waist, from their throat down. They can only taste and feel satiation in their mouth. So please think about that. You know, if you're craving a carb, it's because you're most likely craving a protein. Proteins last longer. The original protein in our lives should have been mother's milk, which is primarily fats and proteins. So if you're craving and it's sweet. So if we got rid of all the bastardized sweet buds that we all hadn't bastardized our taste buds when we were little, we would be craving sweet. Meat is sweet. Water is sweet. Those things are sweet. If we didn't have all this other stuff that was defining sweet as candy or juice or whatever goes on. So we digest carbohydrates in our mouth, then it gets into our stomach where our stomach acids are. That breaks up your fats and proteins, but that pH has to be perfect when it comes out of your stomach to get your gallbladder and your pancreas to digest your fats and proteins. So that's how the digestion works. And of that, carbohydrates are the easiest to digest, then proteins, then fats, then rocks or minerals or vegetables. So when I'm starting to get people to eat more vegetables, I start with, that's why we have vinegar on our salads. Vinegar is a digestive. I mean, nothing's random. You know, all these terminologies are actually health related for eons. When we talk about like that terminology, it scares the shit out of you. It's because when you get scared, it causes a response that makes your gut empty. So a lot of these sayings that we have for good health are just sayings in our natural, you know, our colloquialisms of English come from health. So anyway, the hardest thing to digest is vegetables. And what I'm trying to get my clients to do is eat 3 proteins a day and 3 to 5 cups of vegetables. And I don't even talk about carbs, because if people eat more vegetables and protein, they're not craving the carbs as much because their sugar levels will stabilize. So I try to, and if you're fighting any kind of cancer, especially breast cancer, we're asking people to have 5 to 7 cups of vegetables a day as a preventative measure. So how do you get that in? I mean, that's a lot of vegetables. I eat a lot of vegetables, and I didn't even get 5 to 7 cups of vegetables a day. So I don't eat American breakfast. My breakfast is a big vegetable smoothie that I don't juice. I want the fiber. And I stick ginger in it so that it's digestible. I have a big salad at lunch with a piece of protein on it, and dinner is 2 vegetables and a lean protein, and that's how I eat. And there's a carb weaved in there every once in a while, or I'll have beans, which have a carbohydrate component to it, and I think are really good foods for most people. But that's where your naturopath becomes really important, because that's good basic dietary suggestions, but diets are really, that's somebody in good health or starting to get into good health, but there are people that have been nutritionally deficient in various areas, or have food allergies or irritable bowel or any of those things. That's where a naturopath totally excels, in the digestive tract. So that's where your individualized medicine comes in handy. So these are just basic fundamental health things that you're probably not eating enough vegetables, you're probably eating not enough proteins, and you're probably eating too many carbs. I'm just going to tell you that. So, you know, sitting down to the traditional bacon and pancakes for breakfast and a sandwich for lunch, and maybe most people eat vegetables at dinner in our culture. They know better. You may have salad and green beans and a piece of meat. That diet has maybe 2 cups of vegetables, maybe. And I'm telling you 3 to 5. So we can help you with figuring out how to do that, because and if you ask me, you notice how I didn't say fruits? The reason I didn't say fruits is because everyone will go to fruits. And fruits, if I had to choose between a fruit and a vegetable for any patient, it would be a vegetable. There are more vitamins and minerals in a vegetable than there ever is in a fruit. So if I have to choose, I'm going to say vegetables, because that's what's missing. Practicalities, by the way, children. If you have a garden, kids will eat more vegetables. They just will. If you get a pot and just stick parsley in it, they'll eat it. Kids need to know where their food's coming from, especially vegetables. They don't need to know where the meat's coming from, because kids will not eat it then. If you let a kid know where lamb comes from, they will not eat that little lamb. So I'm just letting you know, they need to know where their vegetables are from. So, you know, that old adage that when you walk into a grocery store, the only thing worth buying is on the outside of the grocery store. You know, that's where all the vegetables and fresh fruits and meats are. Everything in the middle is processed or frozen. Just thought I'd let you know. If you're shopping in that middle of that grocery store, it probably doesn't have the highest rate of nutritional value. So that's my dietary suggestions.